All right, so in this set of notes, we're going to focus on progressive legislation, and we're going to talk about the push for reform and how it gave way to this new legislation during the progressive era. All right, so expanded role for government. Progressives believe that government ought to increase its responsibility for the welfare of people. So they advocated for a safety net for people. So this would be unemployment benefits for people who lost their jobs, accident and health insurance if something were to happen at work, or even outside of work. They also wanted to create a social security program that people could pay into while they work so that they would have money when they retire. Municipal reforms, which just means city or local, aimed at ending corruption within cities. Some reformers worked for home rule, which just meant or just was a system that gives cities a limited degree of self-rule, so it does not allow a city to have all of the control. This would allow cities to escape domination by state governments controlled by political machines or by business and rural interests, because they just wouldn't have all of that control. An example here would be that they attacked the political machines like Tammany Hall and Boss Tweed in favor of educated professional leadership, meaning they really did not want people getting positions just because they were loyal to somebody high up or they had a connection. They wanted people in positions that were actually qualified for these positions, and they hoped that this would lessen the corruption in the cities. City reform. Some cities changed their structure of government. Many city governments began to take over control of utilities like water, gas, and electric to break up some of the monopolies. So remember, monopoly is when a company or business has complete control of a product or service. And in a lot of cases, when it came to water, gas, and electric, one particular company or business had control of this utility, and so they could charge whatever they wanted. And so one of the reforms in which we saw come about during this time was breaking up those monopolies so that they couldn't be overcharging for things that were really necessary in the home. Some cities offered new welfare systems, new public parks, baths, and work relief programs as well. State reforms. Voters gained more direct influence in lawmaking and in choosing candidates. Formerly, party leaders often handpicked candidates for office, but states began adopting direct primaries for state offices, and this was just an election in which citizens vote to select nominees for the upcoming election directly. In direct primary, citizens can select their own nominee in an upcoming election, as I just said. Power to voters. Many states adopted initiatives. This allowed voters to put a proposed law directly on a future ballot by collecting voter signatures on a petition. And remember, this is one of the things that originated during the populism movement. This was something that the farmers wanted, and we see them get it here. Same with referendum and recall. So referendum allows voters to approve or reject a law passed by the legislature, and recall allows voters to remove public officials from office before the next election. So again, this gives us, the people, more of a say within the government, and so we're hoping that we will be heard more so, and then we will get what we need and want more often. 17th Amendment. Prior to the political reforms, U.S. senators were picked by each state's legislature, but in 1913, the 17th Amendment required direct election, voter chosen of senators. And so this amendment allowed us to, again, choose our senators directly, giving us more of a say of who is representing and making decisions for us. And again, this originated during the populist movement as well, and then we actually see it go into effect here. Reforms in the workplace. State reforms worked to curb workplace hazards. Many states established labor departments to regulate working conditions, and businesses resisted new government regulation, believing it to be unconstitutional, and courts generally upheld these views. In Muller v. Oregon, we saw women fighting for a 10-hour workday, specifically laundry workers. And then using scientific evidence, they successfully argued that long working hours negatively affected women's health. So basically, it was determined that the government could intervene if and when workers' health or safety was in jeopardy. And in this court case, again, they were advocating a 10-hour workday for women and using scientific evidence provided by the National Consumers League. They argued that this affects their health, and it stood. Robert Law Follett, he served as Wisconsin governor from 1901 to 1906, and then as the U.S. senator from 1906 to 1925. And he was one of the most determined progressives in the U.S. politics. He got the nickname Fighting Bob, trying to clean up government and produce social welfare programs, and he really, really attacked the political machines and ousted party bosses and really brought about some serious structural changes, such as the direct primary and then the civil service reform, or the reform of government positions and those people earning those positions based on merit rather than loyalty. Ran as the Progressive Party's candidate for president in 1924 and earned 1/6 of the vote. Theodore Roosevelt's Square Deal. So in 1902, the United States mine workers went on strike. Mine owners refused to negotiate. So Roosevelt insisted on arbitration, or a third party ruling on the situation, and he threatened to seize the mines with the U.S. Army. So during this time, mine owners refused to negotiate, and winter was approaching, and there was a growing shortage of coal because of this strike. And so that's, again, why Roosevelt kind of has to step in and insist that they come to some sort of an agreement, and also had to threaten them that they would have to seize the mines with the U.S. Army if they did not reach an agreement. Arbitrators ruled in favor of a raise for miners. Roosevelt called this a square deal for both sides. This became a very well-known slogan. It was the first time a president ever sided with laborers during a strike instead of the owners. Arbitrators ruled in favor of a 10% raise for miners specifically, and reduced their workday from 10 to 9 hours. Now, why did he call this a square deal for both sides? Mostly because it was seen as a fair deal. Antitrust activism. Roosevelt also broke up numerous trusts and monopolies, and the Roosevelt administration filed 42 antitrust actions. The Beef Trust, Standard Oil, and the American Tobacco Company were all broken up or reorganized under Theodore Roosevelt's presidency. It's also important to note here that although the Sherman Antitrust Act was put in place in 1890, it had never really been enforced. And Theodore Roosevelt was not anti-business, he just wanted to break up trusts that did harm to the public. Railroad regulation. Roosevelt won the passage of the 1906 Hepburn Act. The act gave the Interstate Commerce Commission strong regulatory powers to enforce railroad laws. Authorized the ICC to set and limit railroad rates, and ICC stands for Interstate Commerce Commission. And this was after a battle of Congress. Roosevelt won the passage of the 1906 Hepburn Act. Public health. Public outcry from Upton Sinclair's The Jungle forced TR to respond by passing the Pure Food and Drug Act and the Meat Inspection Act, regulatory acts that enforce sanitation, pure food preparation. The act led to the Food and Drug Administration, FDA. These 1906 laws required accurate label of ingredients, strict sanitary conditions, and a rating system for meats. So what does the FDA actually do today? It protects public health by regulating drugs, products, medical devices, food supply, dietary supplements, and cosmetics. Meat and poultry are regulated by the Department of Agriculture. So, for example, FDA also ensures that all of these products are labeled truthfully with the information that people need to use them properly. The Food and Drug Administration touches the lives virtually of every American every day. For it is FDA's job to see that the food we eat is safe and wholesome. The cosmetics we use won't hurt us. The medicines and medical devices we use are safe and effective, and that radiation-emitting products such as microwave ovens won't do us harm in the long run. Food and drugs for pets and farm animals also come under FDA scrutiny. FDA also ensures that all of these products are labeled truthfully with the information that people need to use them properly. Protecting the environment, Theodore Roosevelt set aside more than 200 million acres for national forests, mineral reserves, and water projects. One of Theodore Roosevelt's most lasting legacies is the large-scale creation of national forests. Congress had established Yellowstone National Park as a national park in 1872. TR set aside more than, like I said, 200 million acres for, these beautiful parks all around our nation. Here are some images of Yellowstone. Here's some more. This map here just shows the various national parks throughout our nation. All right, and the new constitutional amendments. So we have the 16th Amendment that was added to the Constitution in 1913. This gave Congress the power to collect a federal income tax. 17th Amendment provided for direct election of senators. 18th Amendment prohibited the manufacture and sale of alcohol. But understand that this is repealed in 1933 with the 21st Amendment. So interestingly, previously the government had relied on income from tariffs or taxes on imported goods, but progressives argued that tariffs pushed up the prices of goods for the working poor. The 16th Amendment enabled the government to get more revenues from the people with higher incomes so that they could afford to get rid of tariffs or lower tariffs. Not all progressives supported prohibition, but many believed that it would protect society from poverty and lessen violence associated with drinking.